Good morning, and thank you for joining Resilient You with Alicia Pozsony. Each week on our show, we bring guests that talk about topics of resilience, and we have many people in different walks of life. And today, I'm super proud and pleased to have an actor that you may have seen. His name is Jake Jensen, and he is a person that's done commercials and movies and has a couple films coming up we want to talk about his experiences there as well. Jake, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Alicia. I really appreciate you having me today.
My pleasure. My pleasure. So, Jake, I want to give you a chance to tell our listeners a little bit about yourself. We get personal on this show, and you bring so much to the table. Not only are you an actor, but you have your PhD. You do a lot of different things, a lot of service offerings. So tell our listeners a little bit about yourself. What can we learn about Jake?
Yeah, I mean, I wear many hats, have many identities, which keeps life exciting and interesting for me. I definitely am focusing a lot on my acting career right now, but it was a very circuitous route to get there. I was an athlete primarily growing up, a tennis player. That was my main focus. That's what I trained for and got a college scholarship, and tennis was my life. But I remember one of my favorite professors at the end of my senior year said, he took me out to lunch because it was graduation, and he said, "What do you want to be?" And he said, "Don't tell me, just think it." And actor popped into my head, which is very strange because I had not done any acting. I didn't have any background in that. And for some reason, actor just kept coming to my kind of subconscious or conscious mind, I guess. And then, I went on to coach tennis. I got my master's degree in sports psychology, then went on and got my PhD in sports psych. But at that same time, I was starting to explore the acting world, mostly through, first of all, just print work and then commercials. And then I've been in LA for about 9 years, really focused on building more of a film TV career. At the same time, still practicing sports psychology. I'm still a professor. So it's a lot of balancing, but I make it work.
Yeah, wonderful. Now, a lot of people might, wonder, how would they do that if they had, they went to school for something. A lot of times people don't know that they're not aligned to what they're authentically, possessed with, right? Yeah. So for you, you had the athleticism, you took that and you went to sports psychology, right? For your major and then beyond. So how did that come into play?
Well, I was actually an English and French major in college. So I knew that probably wasn't what career-wise I wanted to do. I realized after college that I could have been even better athlete if I had done some mental training, had worked on the psychological part of performance. And I realized that even when I was coaching, I saw so many players that had the skills, but it was the mental, the mental blocks, the being able to perform under pressure. And that really is why I went into sports psychology. And I'm very glad I did, because I'm lucky that I really love my consulting and teaching job, but I also love acting. And, it's not a matter of I enjoy both of them. And actually that balance, I think, really helps me not burn out on either front. I have almost two careers that I'm really passionate about, which it makes it more complicated, but it also makes my life very, very interesting.
Yeah. Well, I can relate because I do a lot of things as well. Last year, I put out a book called Emotional Strength Explained, and it came out of the challenges that I faced in my life. And so my professional career was project management, and I had a 20-year stint in IT and technology. Yet I found myself in the middle of my life wanting to do something different. So I became a career coach, then a life coach, now I have this show on resiliency, and I have a Power Your Life program to help. So yeah, so it's just this full gamut of a lot of things, and it does help balance it out. And that's a wonderful message, I think, to get out there, both to young actors coming out on the scene as well as athletes. I know that athletes are pressured by a different set of standards than actors, right? So that's one of the things I want to talk about, the challenges that they both face, as you've done both, you've been both, you counsel both, you have this wonderful wealth of experience. So what would you say the number one thing that I think that is shared by athletes, actors, and celebrities, the number one challenge is mental health issues, right? And as you said, not having that toolkit of solutions to be able to deal with these things that might crop up. What do you think is one thing that you can offer both to athletes and celebrities on how to deal with this when it crops up, or even ahead of when it happens?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what's so important, is taking a proactive approach to not only like performance issues in the sense of being able to perform your best under pressure, but also recognizing warning signs for depression, anxiety, because those can obviously develop into more serious mental health issues. And the more you can be proactive and work on some skills, relaxation techniques, mindfulness, meditation, different things, that's going to really help. I'm not saying it's always going to prevent mental health, clinical mental health disorder, but it will certainly, I think, a lot of times slow it up, or certainly help it not to develop or not be as serious. So I think absolutely taking that very proactive approach is essential. And first of all, just congrats on all that you do. That's amazing. I want to write a book, and that's in my plans. And also just your life coach stuff that you do. I assume a lot of it is actually similar to what I do, because you can't separate performance from what's going on in your life. Some people are able to do it better than others, but you can't completely separate the two. So I feel like a lot of what I do is life coaching as well.
Yeah, it's true. And when and this really hit me when I was a career coach. People would come to me, they would say, I'm not happy with my job, or I want to make more money, things that really, when you look at it, it's the whole self that needs attention. So I found myself working with people in many areas just to get them that happiness in their day job, right? And it's something that's so cool now, because I think there is more focus on breaking that stigma of mental illness, right? And I had depression in my young 20s. I didn't understand it because it wasn't comfortable, and again, I felt like at that time, the more I did, the more active I was, everything should be working in my life. I should feel happy. I should feel fulfilled. If you look at like celebrities, you look at actors where you may try out for roles or go for something that you might have to go to 40, 50 auditions before landing something that's beneath you, or not even what you felt you could do, or worse, not what you want to do because you're typecast into that one thing. And I'm sure that you can relate because you've had many roles as a tennis related, but I think they've served you well. I want to talk about that too, but let's go back. So it's true that it's been an amazing journey that I've had, being able to help thousands of people in both, career, professional, and personal. So it's interesting. That proactive approach, one of the first things that I have people do is take an honest look at themselves, and we have people, you may not realize some of the things that you bring with you based on your upbringing, based on who you are. And to be an actor, it's amazing. I have a 9-year-old daughter, and I'm trying to she just tried out for something, and she got one of the Lion King. She got one of the roles of Pumbaa. No training, no experience, but she has that dramatic, and she's funny, and it's like I just can't wait to see if she can take this somewhere, But but Jake, tell us a little bit about your recent roles. I know that you were typecast for a role in an upcoming movie with Zendaya. Zendaya. I always say it
I
wrong.
say Zendaya. I don't know. She's huge now, so I probably should know this, but I heard it different
Yeah.
ways, so I'm not sure what her pronunciation would be. But yeah, it's actually a tennis film called Challengers. It's kind of a romantic, not comedy, but it's I can't. There's drama between. She plays a tennis coach with her boyfriend or her husband, but then her former boyfriend, they're like rivals, so it's this like love triangle. And I got to play a kind of a trash talking Swedish tennis player in the locker room, so it was a lot of fun to shoot. I believe it's coming out sometime this fall. The last I heard was like the Venice Film Festival is when it's coming out. Zendaya was not in the scenes that I was in, but she was there. She also was a producer on the film, so she was there, and I got to see her in producer mode, which was very cool. We shot it in Boston last May was when I was there. So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Nice. Wonderful. Well, we'll look forward to seeing you in that. When you first came across my desk, I saw your face and I was like, I know him. When I saw your face, I thought you were some kind of warrior or some kind of, because, you have that like Icelandic look and you have Danish heritage, right? Oh, and you played with another film with Will Smith, right? King Richard?
Yeah, that was an speaking of resiliency. So I booked that role as a tennis tennis coach. We sometimes just call them tennis pros. And again, my tennis background has helped me get some of these roles. I booked that right before COVID hit. And so I even had my shoot dates, April 6th. I remember, I had my shoot dates. I had wardrobe had already contacted me, and then COVID hit in March and production got completely shut down. Obviously, at that point, we had no idea how long it was going to last. I thought, oh, maybe a month or two. Then I remember in the summer, I got a call that my role had been cut from the film, which was a huge blow for an actor to have their role cut. So then I thought I wasn't shooting anything. Then I got a call in October that they had written in a smaller role for me, but they definitely wanted me back. So then I was super excited. I shot that. Will Smith was on the phone with me in that scene. Tony Goldwyn, who played the president on Scandal, is a pretty well-known actor. He was who my scene was with. So that was great. I finally got to shoot. And then I went to the premiere of it with my manager, and my scene got cut from the movie. So talk about a roller coaster of emotions. That I mean, it's a great experience, but it was also some of my highest highs as an actor, but also sitting there in the theater and realizing my scene was not going to be there. I knew where it would fit in, and that's like getting stabbed in the heart as an actor. So, but that's part of what you just have to accept, is that's part of being an actor, is dealing with that.
So that story about Venus and Serena Williams, the trailer that I saw, it was like a lot of what people deal with. Do we back down when we're faced with challenges or things against us, right? And as an actor, you're in, then you're out, then you're in, then you're out, and then it was cut. Like, how do young actors, because let me just tell you, in my life early on, I was afraid of failure because I didn't have support and I didn't have the tools to deal with situations like that. I was never on a team. I had asthma, so I wasn't able to be athletic or do anything like that. How do we look at fear of failure? What's something that people can do, whether you're in acting, whether you're an athlete and going through? My son had a challenge of he played football, and when he was 8, he broke his ankle. Then he did baseball too, but then his baseball was impacted because now he's in high school and he's starting pitcher and he's back up there, but it took 5 years of struggle, right? So we already said about being proactive, recognizing the signs, but how can people deal with that fear of failure when they've either failed or they can?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question, and it's not easy, but we have to change our perception about what failure is, because we're so conditioned. If you lose, that's a failure. If you don't book the role, that's a failure. And that's, that's kind of how our society functions. And the reality is, you may lose a tennis match or a game, and it's not a failure if you're improving, learning, growing. So to taking on that kind of growth mindset, looking at what we can gain from it or learn from it. And the same thing as an actor. Just because you don't book a role doesn't mean that you haven't made progress. You know, you're getting seen by a casting director. Maybe you didn't book this role, but you're going to book. You're going to be on their radar for a role that's even better for you down the road, or you're making those contacts. I mean, some of these roles that I go out for, they have 3,000 submissions. The fact that I even get an audition is already a victory. So booking it is not, you know, you can't look at that as a failure. You look at it, this was a great opportunity. I got to act. I got to be in front of a casting director or on camera. Self-tapes are the standard now after COVID. But that it's not a failure. And that's taken me time to learn. And I think actually my sport background helped me in that sense, because I learned how to lose. I learned that you can't take a loss as a failure. You have to learn from that. And I think that actually has really helped me as an actor. I already experienced that as an athlete, so it wasn't as hard for me maybe as an actor to kind of adopt that same mentality.
I love that. That's perfect. That's why parents, if you're listening, enroll your children. Let them try. Let them fail. Let them see what resonates with them and what works. I mean, I imagine Jake's parents could have saved a lot of money if he had tried acting earlier. No, I'm teasing. But seriously, it's something that so many roles in our lives, whether we're struggling with the pressure to do well or handling criticism, right? So those are both things for athletes and celebrities that I know are challenges that they face. When we look at how to handle criticism, what else, right? So let's say we have a growth mindset. We say, I can do it. I've done this and it's not a failure. What about the critics of the world, whether they're internal and someone close to you, such as a parent or a coach who might be tough or not thinking emotionally? I know a lot of parents especially are tough on their kids, and you see signs up at the Little League like, this is not Major League Baseball, calm down, right? Like, so, but again, how can people in general deal with criticism, even self-criticism, which is sometimes the biggest, that negative voice that pops up in our head?
Yeah, I mean, I always say to my students, especially, or even the clients that I work with, I said, would you ever talk to somebody else the way you talk to yourself? I think sometimes, for a lot of us, I am way more negative with myself sometimes than I would ever be with someone else. And I tend to be very positive when I'm coaching and giving feedback, but because that works for me. But then I go, why am I not practicing that on myself? I should be coaching and talking to myself the same way that I would to other people. So I think, again, that awareness of like, how are we treating ourselves? How are we again, that self-criticism is such a common problem. I see it with athletes, actors, really anyone who performs. So I think just realizing that we are our own coach, and we need to learn how to coach ourselves much healthier, in much better ways than a lot of times we do. I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent, but what's interesting actually is in acting, you often get no feedback. So when you don't book a role, usually the casting director isn't like, oh, you could have done this better, you could have worked on this. It's just you just don't hear. You submit your audition, and if you don't hear within a week, you kind of assume that you didn't book the role. But there's very rarely that feedback of like, oh, here's what you did well, here's what you could do better. You have to almost really go out of your way, like send it to your acting coach and say, could you give me some feedback on this? Or which you can do occasionally, but I don't want to send like every audition, and overwhelm someone. Whereas in sports, I feel like for better or for worse, you're often getting feedback from coaches, parents. You're getting that feedback all the time, which can be helpful if you take it the right way. It can also be very hard to deal with. So it's been interesting because I feel like as an actor, your only feedback really is if you book the role or not. If you book it, you did well. And that's where going back to seeing if you don't book something is not a failure, but hey, what can I learn from this? But it's hard when you're not getting that feedback too. So yeah, it's
Yeah. So if we can be our own coach and focus on that personal growth and the growth mindset, like you mentioned earlier, I think that would help dealing with criticism or getting no feedback. I know in career coaching, people go for an interview, they don't get the job, they don't have a chance to same thing,
yeah.
they don't get that feedback. But when you go for a role and you don't get it, and then you watch the film or the show, do you look at the other guy and say, well, I could have done that better? Do you do that?
You know what? I auditioned for a series regular role a few months ago, and I know who booked the role, and I was like, I don't even want to watch it because I don't want to compare myself. I felt really good about the audition, but then the actor that booked it has a lot more credits than me, a lot more status as an actor. So I have to go, I was competing against that. That was the fact that I was still being considered for a role with somebody who has a 20-year acting career and mine's relatively short. That's the fact that I had an audition for this role was in victory. And that's kind of for me, it's hard to go back and watch and go, oh, I could have had that role. That's a choice I've made to not do that. I think it'd actually be hard to go and watch those.
Yeah, I imagine it would. I was just curious because I was shy growing up, and now I'm more outspoken than ever. But in thinking, okay, if my daughter goes somewhere with this acting thing, well, maybe I should try it too. Why not? But again, it's people say I have a good voice, so I'm going with that for now, and that's enough. But it's interesting. What about a lot of times when I think about acting, I think about celebrities. You have the mental health issues, but then what about relationships? And there's so many topics we could delve into, but I think with relationships, it can be challenging probably to maintain healthy relationships because of all the pressure, right? Being in the public eye. Would you say maintaining because also you don't know who to trust, right? Is it true? Like you feel like you can't trust people because they just want you for your status?
I think there is some of that. I think just the lifestyle, there's a lot of flexibility, but there's also a lot of change all the time. And that can be really hard with relationships. Because you have an audition pop up and you have to drop everything and get that ready, or you book a role and suddenly your whole schedule changes. So I think that's challenging. Maybe down the road, when I'm a little higher status as an actor, that will change. I don't feel like that's maybe been something I've had to deal with that much up to this point, but still trusting, who to really trust in the industry. And that's why I think building relationships for me, like with an acting community that I do classes with, I've had the same coach in LA, acting coach for 9 years now. That's somebody I can really trust. There's certain casting directors that I now have relationships with that I can ask advice. I can, I think building that is essential, because it's easy to get, I'll just give an example. One of my first agencies in LA basically took me out to dinner, the head of the agency, and said, you have no talent. You basically need to go to parties, make connections, sleep with people, and even, casting directors, make them know that you're willing to sleep with them. That was the advice to have a successful career. And this was a pretty well-respected agency in LA. And I just thought, that's not how I want to, that's not what I want to do. But that's somebody that I should be able to trust, my agency. And I didn't trust them at all with this is your business plan, is to basically sleep around and be a party guy. And that, I'm like, that's not who I am. So,
Yeah, that's one way. That's interesting. That still happens. I thought that was something of the
well,
80s, but
I mean, maybe after the whole Me Too movement, but this was,
mm,
9 years ago. It was, I think it still happens. Hopefully it's gotten better. I mean, I haven't had anything similar to that recently, so that's good, but I probably smarter now who I
yeah,
associate with
yeah.
as well.
So that's good. So the thing that you've, highlighted here is to get support and you have a support system, right? Whether it's acting communities and people you can trust. That's a good piece of advice, I think, for everyone.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes tough because, as you say, you've gotten burned. I'm sure we've all been there,
Yeah.
right? We've had a situation where we've given some advice, and to listen to that intuition that you had that said, okay, I want to go a different path. Staying true to yourself is probably also somewhat hard to do for celebs and, athletes, because I'm sure you want to appease the masses, and you want to get that status. You want to get to that level and be liked and be appreciated and be wanted, desired. But at the same time, you can't let that passion for fame take over.
Yeah.
And if you can avoid that type of pressure, I think that's really going to help you to stay authentic while still doing what's right. And the cream rises to the top, right? So, yeah.
I mean, I love most of the actors that I associate with and work with. Some have higher, celebrity status than others, but the majority are driven by this intrinsic motivation, this desire to improve as our skill, to do it because we love it. Now, obviously, getting a good paycheck is nice, and there's nothing wrong with that, or getting higher celebrity status. But I still think when that driving force is that intrinsic desire, motivation to really do it, also because of the love of it. I think that's for sport or for any career. That's ultimately a lot more motivating than being completely extrinsically motivated, which we do get sometimes caught up in our society of that. But I think it's important to do it for the passion, and that's easier said than done sometimes. But I've actually been impressed. Most of the actors I know are not doing it to be famous. They're doing it because they really love the craft. And that's why it's fun to train with them, and fun to do scenes, and fun to just have that kind of group around you.
Mm-hmm. So focus on the positive side, which is also going to help with the positive self-image, right? Because you've got to continually maintain that positive self-image while still, be mindful of your outward image. And, it's a tough thing to do, in regular life, not let alone celebrity or athletes, top athletes. They've got to do that. And again, we've seen some people out in the spotlight in a negative light, and they don't care because it's still, it'll be forgotten about in a couple of weeks. And then so there's a different school of thought to some situations too.
Yeah. But no, you're going back to that self-criticism or just criticism. I mean, now with social media, there's comments on everything. I had a photographer a month ago that I used to shoot with said, "Oh, you're looking like you're getting really fat. You need to lose." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm not. I'm fine." But it's, and I'm at a point where I'm just like, whatever. I don't need that relationship in my life. But it's a lot to hear that kind of criticism, and not to. We tend to remember when we get criticized, and it's hard to get that out of our heads.
Yeah, if you take something and you take it to heart and then you act on it to self-improve, it could benefit you. But again, I think it's true. You have to have that right level of resiliency to bounce back from those negative comments. One thing is not to read the comments, because people have just too much time on their hands. I think I don't understand people myself, but no, I do, and I counsel people, so that's one of the things. But Jake, let's talk a minute. I want to ask you we've talked about film. You've done a couple recent large, high-level profile projects. You've been on television and commercials also before that, right? What are some of the memorable other things that you've done that people might want to go check out?
Related to my acting career.
Yeah, you're acting too, and I know we're bouncing all over
No,
the place here, but
that's my life. I'm
yeah.
used to this. I'm used to bouncing around. I have a film coming out. The target date is May or end of May, beginning of June, called Beleive. It's a feature film. I was also an executive producer, so I had the lead male role in it. But I also was, like I said, a producer on it. So I really poured my heart, soul into this project. And I'm really proud of, I haven't seen the final edit yet. I've just seen certain scenes that have been edited, but I'm really proud of what we've created. Exactly how we're going to get it distributed and possibly film festivals and things. But that's something I'm very excited about, and definitely will, as soon as we have a premiere date and get a theater and things, I'll be posting that. But I think that means a lot to me because it's a lead role, and we shot it over the course of an entire year. So I really, it became a family. I mean, the other actors, when you're spending, I think our total shoot days were like 28, but that was actual shoot dates, but there was planning and location scouting, and it became a family, and that was a lot of fun to be part of, and I'm proud of what we created.
Wonderful. So that's exciting. So listeners, Beleive, it should be coming out soon with Jake having the lead male role. We'll look forward to that. Jake, what's the premise? What's the overall story on that?
Yeah, one? Let me see what I can share. I play a war veteran, Afghanistan war veteran, dealing with mental health issues. And so I go to a therapist, and a relationship. There's a love story. A relationship develops. Obviously, there's client-therapist issues going on. And then I don't think I can reveal who my therapist actually is, but it's a surprise. About halfway through the film, I discover, as well as the audience, that my therapist is not just a therapist. She's also, well, I don't even know what I could say, but she's...
Okay. Well, don't give
I don't
away,
want to give away too much. But she's a very famous historical biblical figure. Let me put it that way. And so there's a little bit of a supernatural element to it as well. But it was actually fun to play not fun, that's maybe not the right word. Very interesting to play a war veteran dealing with some mental health and just kind of living with that character and exploring that. And again, I was Jason. That's my character's name. I inhibited that character for over a year, and it's amazing how you can almost become that character in certain ways. It was very interesting to live with the character for that long.
Yeah, so that's something that, as never having been an actor, I don't know it, but I know people have different ways of becoming the character. And when some of the amazing people that I've seen just to embody that role, I interviewed an actress not too long ago, and when I looked at her reel, it was like, wait a minute, she's really not Hispanic? How is that?
Yeah.
But it's so amazing how they how you all do that. It's just, but then when you talk about something like a character that has mental health issues, and, you have to get an understanding. I'm sure you had to do a lot of research and, maybe even look at someone in real life that had those issues and then try to be that. That's just amazing.
Well, my character also ends up having a terminal disease. So I'm also facing, the end of my life, which that was a interesting place to go, because it really makes you think about, what am I doing with my own life? Am I really taking advantage of every day? Am I focusing on what's really important? It got me thinking about a lot of important, I think, the importance of life. And some people are like, wasn't that a really dark place to go? And I didn't find it that way. I actually found it was a reminder of how precious life is. And that was really, I think, a good reminder for me as a human being to go to that place.
Yeah, we don't often think about our own mortality. And, I certainly didn't. Recently I turned 50. So I'm starting now.
Well,
you
don't look 50 at all. So
thank you. I would say I don't feel it, but sometimes no. But seriously though, it's not something. If something traumatic happens in your life, you might think of it, or you might go there, or people near you pass, or But again, it's something that to go through it on film, and that it probably brings you to a different level of that human characteristic, right? Like
Yeah.
so Jake, what are you doing now differently? What are you doing now to live a better life after you've had to face that mortality?
I've definitely, I think, prioritized relationships and the importance of people, and that's making sure that I'm really appreciating those that are in my life and taking time to let them know that I appreciate them and spending time. And I think that's I'm definitely have a healthier. I feel like I'm having a healthier personal relationships, family relationships. All of that is been more of a priority uh, in the last, I would say, 6 months since we wrapped shooting. It's been a good reminder to me to really be appreciative of those that we have.
Great. Yeah. And I think that in doing that, you probably also have a better, well-rounded life.
Yeah.
Is that right? Because I know clients I work with, and different experiences. When people go through something, it's like a valley, right? You go in a valley, then you rise back up, and like you emerge a different person. And then you might find that other things start going more in your
Yeah.
direction as
Yeah. No,
well.
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think that's even though I knew that balance is important, I think sometimes we have to realize that that can happen in different ways. But yeah, absolutely. I think by focusing more on the importance of relationships and people, that other good things are happening now in my life, which is, it's nice to see that.
So we know you started out with tennis. You had the languages right back in school. You obviously you have the acting. You had the tennis. What about you? Also are a musician. You have 10 years
Yeah, when
piano.
I was 8 years old, I asked my parents for a piano for Christmas. I don't know where that came from. Why I got it in my head that I wanted a piano, and I wanted to obviously play the piano because my parents don't play. We didn't. That wasn't something. I somehow got in my head that piano is what I wanted to do. So they got me a piano for Christmas. I was very excited, and I played it. I took lessons for 10 years till I was 18. I still play a lot. I've actually composed a score for a film that I need to write. I've written the music. Now I need to write the film. But uh, but yeah, I mean, music is still a really important part of my life.
Yeah. So music, I often prescribe people to use music as an emotional tool. And if you have that talent, and you can be creative, and now it's so exciting to hear that you're able to take that talent and match it up to the other side of the house. So that'll be awesome.
Yeah.
We'll look forward to that when you get there. What's your plans? What are your plans, let's say, for the next 5 years or so?
Well, I mean, I definitely have a lot of goals in my different professions. Certainly, I want to do more radio. I want to reach a bigger audience as a sport and performance psychology consultant. I mentioned earlier I'm planning to write a book in the next year, highlighting some of my own approaches to mental training. I have an approach that I call the MARS approach, MARS, mindfulness, accountability, resiliency, and self-care. So that could be a whole nother topic one day, but that's kind of the pillars of the book that I'm writing. So I've got those professional goals. And, again, building my consulting has been a goal, but I think radio and TV is a way to reach a much broader audience than I have. So that's exciting. Acting wise, obviously, booking a recurring role on a show or a bigger role in a movie. I mean, that's obviously there, and I'm getting closer. It's going to happen. But yeah, I mean, I don't want to get too caught up on the outcome goals, focus more on the process, but those are definitely there. I'd love to be a series regular on a show, and I'd love those like Viking type show. Again, my Danish background, I think I have that look. So, but I also like westerns, like a Yellowstone type of show or something. I love to ride horses as well, so doing something kind of western would be fun. Yeah, and I just think continuing to grow, and I think that's the great thing about life is we can keep learning, keep growing, keep developing throughout our lives, and so yeah.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, I know that on this show today, we've talked about so many things. We've talked about ways that people can improve, being focused on a growth mindset, pushing off that criticism from the outside, and tuning into our internal self-care, and staying positive, right? That's, I think, a big theme across no matter what challenges we might be facing, if we're, in the arts, or even just regular day-to-day people, to take that and use that in your life. And Jake, are there things that you do on a regular basis that help you to stay so positive?
Well, I make sure I take 20 minutes every day just to practice some type of mindfulness, meditation. I try to do more than that, but at least for me, at least 20 minutes a day. And that's really important because, 20 minutes may not sound like much, but if you just allow yourself 20 minutes with no distractions, no phone, it's amazing how that can just enter. I try to do it in the morning as part of my morning routine. But I sometimes don't get to it till later in the day, and that's okay too. It's kind of like it refreshes me to get through the rest of the day or the afternoon. So I think that's really important, and there's different ways I do that. I also love getting out in nature. I'm fortunate in Southern California. We've got hiking trails, beach. I can get outside a lot, and then going back to exercise is also something that's so important in helping our mood to stay positive. Even something, it doesn't have to be an hour at the gym. It can be a 20-minute walk. It can be I also, another motto of mine is break a sweat every day. Somehow break a sweat. It doesn't have to be long, but the idea is of doing something physically active every day. And I think that's really important for our physical well-being, but also our emotional and mental health. And staying positive. It's a lot easier. I always feel better when I do something physically active.
Yeah, those are wonderful tips. And I know, each of us has our different practices, and some people that don't have a routine. One of the things I think we heard Jake say is he does something every day. And that's one way that you have a routine in your life. Routines are so important. People don't often realize it. When you miss it, it then will crop up, and then it'll throw your day off or throw your mood off, or, it's something simple like taking that time to yourself. If you don't have that during the day, you might treat others, and it's not intentional, right? You might snap at somebody, or you might not give them that full concentration of what they're looking for. So again, it affects relationships. It affects your performance on the job, on the field, on the camera. Again, I think if you're authentic, true to yourself, and you instill some of these routines, you can focus on your mental health and really be more positive to get to a better place in your life. I think that's some of the messages, right? And Jake is available for sports performance. You're taking new clients, Jake?
Yeah, I'm open to. I work with a handful of athletes right now. I also have done a little bit of consulting with the Miss America organization and pageant girls that are training. I've worked with firefighters. I've worked with actors. So yeah, I have a pretty broad, diverse range of clients that I've worked with. So yeah, I'm always happy to chat. I always do a session for free to just see if it's a good fit, and if that's something that I can help them, if they feel like it's going to be mutually beneficial, and then we can go from there. But Yeah, I'm available.
Great. Now, how can people find you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm affiliated with the California State University Northridge, so I can be contacted through there. But the best is probably just email or phone number. I don't know if I can give those here, or my email is Jake Jensen. So my name, JakeJensen, info, like short for information. So JakeJensenMedia at gmail.com. That's probably the best way. I have a university email as well, but either one is fine.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. So, Jake, we'll look forward to your upcoming film,
Thank
Beleive,
you.
where you're the lead male role. A little bit of supernatural there too for anybody out there who's looking for something different. It's always good to see something that's more complex, if you will. And as well, we know, Jake, you've been on. I don't know. I'm just so amazed at how diverse you are. Well, yeah, I want to give you a chance too. Is there anything else that you haven't yet shared with our listeners that you want to share?
I think thank you for all the great questions today, and there's been so many interesting points we've talked about. I think for me, it's just a takeaway message is find something that you're passionate about, because life is much more exciting and interesting if you're passionate about what you're doing. And I see way too many people in a rut with their careers, with their lives. It's like there's no joy. And I know, like, even my dad sometimes like, well, simplify your life, there's so much going on. But I'm passionate about what I do, and it makes me happy. And so again, it's not always easy to balance it all, but I wake up every day passionate about what I'm doing. And that, and I think everybody can find that, whether it's a hobby, whether hopefully it's a career, but even not, finding something that gets you excited to wake up every day. And that could be family, that can be hobbies. I think that's a really important, because that makes everything else maybe not easier, but worth it.
Yeah, I love that. That's so true. If we can find out that thing we're passionate about. And, I was dealing with a client the other day that you mentioned this, and, and I asked him, what do you want? Right? It's kind of like a loaded question.
Yeah.
And a lot of people can answer that. They can tell me something that they want, right? Whether, again, like the career thing, more money or a different job, or, less demanding job, different things. But then there's the thing that you're passionate about. That's where the authenticity comes in. And a lot of times, especially for men, I think it's harder for men to dig in and find out what they like, maybe because they didn't learn it, right? It wasn't a skill for, a lot of people, a lot of men in middle of their life.
Yeah.
They didn't communicate, or they didn't talk, and they didn't learn it. So do you think that do you agree with me that that's harder for men to?
Yeah, I think that, socialized into men for so many decades of, you've got to provide and get a career. And even if you don't love it, you do it because that's, you're making a living, and that's what you're doing. I guess I'm fortunate that I don't know if I was just born this way or encouraged certainly by my mom, but do what you love, explore your passions. That's why when I was 8 years old, I asked for a piano, and I kind of lived my life that way, that I'm, and even adding a career or changing careers, it's like, well, yeah, that's scary, but that's also fun and exciting. And I think it's changing, but I do think traditionally it's kind of like, no, you pick a path and you just stick with that, especially for men. And I think, there's nothing wrong with change. Doesn't matter what age you are. If something excites you and you want to pursue it and explore it, I'm not saying making stupid, choices, but not having that fear of doing it, or even just going, well, that's not what I'm supposed to do. You can change and you can add and develop and explore. And so.
Yeah, when you said like taking, don't make stupid choices. Well, if someone loves art, let's say, but they're making money in a financial career, and they don't, they can't just quit their job and paint all day. There's ways to get into that art, and people like me, mentors, people like you, we can help guide these people to find what their true passions are. So it's such a wonderful thing that you raised there.
Yeah. And, like for me, I mean, for example, when I first moved to LA, if I just quit my professor teaching job and said, I'm just going to be an actor, maybe that would have worked out. But actually having, being a professor, having that steady salary has actually taken a lot of pressure off me, in the sense of I don't have to rely on acting to pay my mortgage or pay my rent. And it's actually, I think, allowed me to develop more as an actor, because it's provided me a certain security financially, but I could still pursue other things. Down the road, I don't know if that will still be the case. Maybe, if I can support myself fully as an actor, that's what I'll choose to do. But that's what I meant by stupid choice. I didn't just throw everything else away. I've allowed myself to pursue what I love, but also, be able to have some stability financially into my life, which I think's been a good thing.
Yeah, so that's great. So if people can take your advice, if they can stay in tune with their, internal self-care, they can stay positive in a growth mindset and live to find your passion and do what you love. I love that. Imagine that if we all did that while still maintaining the relationships and focusing on the people in our lives, we could just change the world.
We could, yes. And we are.
I
do think this thank you for what you do. I think, the more there can be discussion and talk about these subjects and issues, we are changing the world slowly, but it's happening. So.
Yes, I agree. And thank you, Jake, for all you do and being so transparent, for sharing with us the world. I'm going to go back and look at some of the things you've done so that I can figure out where I've seen you, because I know I've seen you, right?
I was in a lot of national commercials, Fiat, Hennessy. I used to do a lot of print work. So, you could have seen me somewhere. I know my students sometimes occasionally, especially when I used to do more commercials in print, they'd be like, was that you in that AT&T commercial? And I was like, yeah, that was me. So, I do get recognized, not all the time, but from time to time.
Right. Well, it's, you have a good face and you have a world of talent, and I'm sure that's going to serve you well in many different roles. We'll look forward to seeing you out there. Are you on Instagram?
I am. So it's JakeJensenMedia. That's actually all my social media platforms. The same handle. It's just my name, Jake Jensen, and then Jake Jensen Media. So TikTok, I just got on. I need to figure that out, but I'm on it now. And Twitter and Instagram, Jake Jensen Media.
Wonderful. Well, Jake, get your cowboy hat on. Get your, TikTok is a great place to reach that younger generation.
Yes.
And, and get seen. And, again, we'll look forward to everything that you have coming up, including the new film. And, again, it's been such a pleasure meeting with you today. Hit me up again when either with the book, when you're ready to do a release, or when you have a new project coming out, or Beleive before it's ready to, hit production. Let me know. I'm ready to have you on again.
All right. No, I love it. This has been great and very nice to meet you as well.
Thanks so much, Jake.